Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the microscopic world of human anatomy. We're going to completely strip away all that complex medical jargon and take a look at the very foundation of your existence. Let's figure out exactly how your body is actually built. Here is our game plan for today. We're going to look at the blueprint of life, what's going on inside the cellular factory, the many wild shapes cells can take, how they combine into tissues, and finally, exactly how your body heals itself. All right, part one, the blueprint of life. Let's start with the fundamental rules and zoom way in to see what's happening inside you right this very second. So, what are you actually made of? It's a surprisingly deep question, right? I mean, you look in the mirror every morning and you see one solid, continuous person. But the reality of your physical makeup is incredibly complex, deeply fascinating, and entirely microscopic. Think about how bricks and lumber are used to build a house. Your body is constructed in a very similar way, using tiny building blocks called cells. And it doesn't just take a few of them. Your body is constructed from an astonishing 50 to 100 trillion of these tiny structural units. It's a mind-boggling number. Now, to make sense of how these trillions of blocks work together, we rely on something called the cell theory. This basically gives us 4 core rules. First, cells are the basic unit of life. They literally contain everything necessary to survive. Second, everything you do depends entirely on the collective activity of these cells. Third, their physical structure determines their function. That basically means a cell's shape matches its job. And finally, cells only come from other cells. Every single cell inside you came from a previously existing cell dividing. And here is where the chemistry gets really interesting. Strangely enough, even when you feel your firm muscles or knock on your hard bones, the living cells making up those seemingly solid structures are actually about 60% water. It's absolutely essential for your biological survival. Okay, moving on to part 2, inside the cellular factory. Now that we know we're essentially a walking, talking collection of trillions of watery cells, let's crack open a single generalized cell and imagine it as a bustling miniature factory. While no two cells are exactly alike, they mostly share 3 distinct regions. You can think of these regions as different departments that each handle specific, vital jobs to keep the factory running smoothly. First up, we have the outer boundary, the plasma membrane. You can think of this as your factory's border security. It's this flexible, transparent barrier. But it doesn't just hold the cell together like a Ziploc bag. It dynamically and tightly regulates exactly what substances are allowed to enter and exit the factory. Safely tucked inside, usually right near the center, is the nucleus. Think of this as City Hall or the main control center. It locks away all the DNA blueprints required to build proteins, dictate operations, and successfully run the entire cell. Without it, the factory completely shuts down. And the rest of the space? Everything filling the gap between the security border and the control center is the cytoplasm. This is essentially the factory floor. It's packed with a semi-fluid gel and these highly specialized little machines called organelles. They're the departments doing the actual heavy lifting, like generating energy or packaging up proteins. That brings us to part 3, the many shapes of cells. So the factory analogy is incredibly helpful, but cells definitely don't all look the same. In fact, if we remember our cell theory, a golden rule of biology is that a cell's physical shape directly dictates its job. Let's see how this plays out in reality. Notice how red blood cells are smooth, disc-like, and spherical. They're built perfectly to just glide through tiny blood vessels carrying oxygen. Now contrast that with nerve cells. They have these long, spindly branches, basically biological wires, perfectly structured to quickly zap electrical messages across vast distances in your body. And look at these epithelial cells. They are literally shaped like tiny hexagons. That geometric design isn't random at all. It allows them to pack tightly together in flat sheets, exactly like a honeycomb in a beehive, creating an unbroken barrier to cover and protect you. Which smoothly transitions us to part 4, tissues, the body's fabric. When millions of these similar, specialized cells link up to perform a common function, they weave together into the next level of human architecture, tissues. To strip away all the complicated medical jargon, we can easily map the 4 primary tissue types directly to their main actions. Epithelial tissue is for covering, connective tissue is for supporting, muscle tissue is for moving, and nervous tissue is for controlling. Together, these four biological fabrics interweave to construct literally all your organs. Let's look a little closer at the movement fabric, muscle tissue. It comes in a few variations. It includes the skeletal muscle that you flex voluntarily when you decide to walk or lift an object. But importantly, it also includes smooth and cardiac muscle. That stuff works entirely involuntarily, continuously pumping your blood and digesting your lunch without you ever having to think about it. And our final stop, part 5, how your body heals. So, we've got trillions of cells woven into distinct functional tissues making up your entire body. But what happens when this microscopic fabric inevitably gets torn or damaged? Well, your body responds to injury with a highly systematic sequence. First, it triggers general inflammation to immediately lock down the area and prevent further injury. Next, an extremely specific immune response rushes in to attack any bacteria or invaders. And finally, the actual healing process begins to replace that damaged tissue. Now, depending on the tissue damaged and how bad the injury is, these fabrics fix themselves in one of two main ways. The best-case scenario is perfect regeneration, where the destroyed tissue is replaced with the exact same identical type of new cells. The fallback plan is fibrosis. That's when the original cells are too delicate to be easily replaced, so the gap is essentially patched up using dense, tough, fibrous scar tissue. You can see the result here. If the physical damage is severe, the intricate original cellular structure simply can't regenerate fully. So your body hits the emergency button and relies heavily on fibrosis. It quickly lays down that tough connective fiber just to bind the wound together. And that is exactly what leaves a visible, permanent scar on the skin surface. Let's wrap up this explainer today with a deeply thought-provoking idea to chew on. Considering that your 100 trillion microscopic building blocks are in an absolute, constant state of division, turnover, and repair, literally dying off and replacing themselves as we speak, are you ever truly the exact same person from one day to the next? It's a pretty crazy biological reality to ponder. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the incredible blueprint of you.